Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Kartikeya has just returned from India's 24th most popular car launch destination, Jaipur, having driven the BYD Sealion. There's three kinds of Sealions in the world. We're going to talk about the third type. So obviously you want to know what are the first two types. The first one is what looks like a seal. It's part of the seal family. Males 300 kilos, females 100 kilos. They last 30 years, something. Second, you go to Gir Forest and you say, "See, lion!" And the third type is BYD's new car, which is officially the BYD Sealion 7. Right? Why?
It's because they have a Sealion 6 also, which is a plug-in hybrid. So they have that. So they had to make another Sealion, so 7.
So, okay, so can I assume 5 was just a hybrid?
I have no idea if there was a
And
5.
4 was an ICE?
I actually don't know if there existed a 5 or whatever.
Okay.
But there is one more Sealion, which is kind of different. Anyways, yeah. What do you want to know?
Okay, Karthik. Shall we answer the Chinese question first and get it out of the way?
Yeah, sure.
How come you're reviewing a Chinese car?
Because it's on sale in India today.
Yes, the reason why we are reviewing a Chinese car is because somebody might be considering this car. It is important to discuss it. If you think we shouldn't be buying Chinese products, don't buy one. It is our job to tell you what is good and what is not. And it's up to you. And you can always vote with your money. Right?
And since we started on this note, there are a couple of overarching themes that I would like to talk about. But we'll do that at the end. There are two things. This is a great place to start regarding this. We do it every time because this is flag waving. Yeah, correct. Right. What do you want to know about the car?
Sealion relationship.
Excellent. I love it. Great starting point. So yeah, on the face of it, you'd think, yeah, it is the same car.
Because if you take seal, add some ions to it, you get a seal.
In this, the ions have not been added. In fact, that ionic part of it is the same. So in terms of the battery, the motors that are available is the same.
Okay.
Because of the names, you'll think that they are related, and they are because of that core electrical architecture. That was the seal, this is the Sealion, and that was the sedan, and this is the SUVized version of it.
Right.
And that's a safe and fairly mostly accurate idea. In terms of the core electrical architecture, like the battery pack, the motors, all that is the same in terms of how much horsepower, how much torque. And here the seal was just wild, right? Because the seal had that 530 something PS all-wheel drive setup with 690 Newton meters of torque and 80 something kilowatt-hour battery pack. So it was solid on that front.
Right.
And the one difference between the seal and the Sealion is that this specification with that larger battery pack is what's available on the Sealion. Okay, wait, hang on, I'll simplify. The Sealion gets one battery pack,
okay,
which is this 80 something kilowatt hour. You have two options in that. There's all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive.
Okay.
On the Seal, you had an even lower spec, which was with a smaller battery pack. That isn't available on the Sealion at all. So in terms of the hardware differences, that's the big difference. Otherwise, the battery, motors and all, that's pretty much what the Seal had.
Understood.
And that is the cool thing about the Sealion. The two options that you get are spec'd identically.
Right.
So in terms of equipment, how the cabin looks, the colors, everything, the wheels, design is the same.
Got it.
But the difference, the only two differences between the two cars, one is that you get a front motor in the high spec variant,
right,
which takes the power up to 530 whatever horsepower, and the other is 320 something.
Oh, just 300?
Just 320.
Oh, that's only 40 more than a BS6. I've lost all interest already.
Right. And the other difference is that the premium, as it's called, and the other is performance, the higher variant is performance. The premium gets 19-inch wheels instead of 20s on the high spec variant. And in this regard, when we drove the Seal, and the Seal's performance variant had 19-inch wheels. And I came away saying that this is a quick car, but I don't think I can recommend this to everybody because of the firmness of the suspension, the amount of noise from the tires that was coming into the cabin. Right. It's not for everybody. Now the good thing is, with this car, you can have that mad performance and yet have a very livable solution.
Got it.
So in this, it's Everything is more distant, everything is more civilized. So it's almost like it's a regular car, and then you go, and it freaking explodes. Like it's
Acceleration explodes.
yeah. It was one of the last things I did in the car to go just pot. And I'm glad I left that for last because I was left a little bit shaken. I know I'd experienced that. I mean, the Seal is even quicker.
Yeah.
Because the sedan, it's slower, it's lighter, all of that. And it's smaller in other ways as well, which we'll talk about. But here, because you're sitting higher up, because this thing is heavier, suspension is softer, when it launches, oh,
Does it squat like this?
you go like that. And the scarier part is when you brake, and for testing sake, braking hard, it's like, it's like, dude, you don't want to do this. It feels violent.
Yeah.
It's and you feel like this. So the performance, okay, this is a great thing to highlight right now. This combination of performance and price is unbeatable.
Okay.
Right? You have other options like the Kia EV6, which is about 60 something lakhs. You have the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which is 40 something lakhs. And this sits between 48 and 55, something like that. So it's about 3 lakhs more expensive than the Seal, 3-4 lakhs. At the upper end, for the more premium variant, the gap is actually narrow between the Seal and the Sealion. So the price to performance, horsepower count, is crazy because the EV6 is 300 and something horsepower for that 65 lakhs. The Ioniq 5 is 220 or something like that.
Got it.
This is its baseline is 300 something.
Right.
Right? So that value equation, which was wild in the Seal, because Seal is even cheaper than this, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't practical enough for people. The ground clearance was an issue.
Correct.
The backseat actual genuine utility wasn't great because you would sit lower and all of that. Now all of those things are taken care of nicely with the Sealion, and that's the broad picture. The catch here is you now have this 530 horsepower electric sports coupe, right? Which you can use with far more ease, far more comfortably, but it's not the sweet one of the two.
Okay.
Because here, the sportiness doesn't come through. Okay? The thing is the suspension setup. Here you feel the weight of the car. And so it tries to handle the roads, which it does all right. It's not smooth. It manages to isolate you from the shocks, but it's not a smooth, sophisticated feeling experience.
Got it. It's sort of managing.
Yeah. It's managing it, yeah. But it's not like, oh wow, this is an expensive car in the way it rides. The performance is incredible. But
Got it.
is the suspension as good? No, it's not.
Okay, just for reference, I know that they don't compare directly with each other. So the BE6 with the adaptive suspension, that's 280 or something bhp, and this 300 bhp version of this car, similar? Or the BE6 actually is more comfortable? Because I think that also has 20-inch wheels or 19-inch wheels. This also has.
Good question. Very good question. So he's brought me to the crux of the story. In the Seal, we recommended getting the lower variant with the 18-inch wheels over there, because that would be the better balance. If you wanted something wild, you go out for the top spec. Here, I would say buy the premium variant with the 19-inch wheels and the rear-wheel drive setup, because that's the car in which the sense of connection as the driver is better.
Got it.
Because what ended up happening while I was driving the car was that in the performance, it was quick. It was doing everything nicely, driving well. But I never felt connected to the car, no matter what I did. When you chucked it around corners and all, it managed everything. You feel the weight of the car, yes.
Got it.
But the thing was that it also felt a bit numb.
Correct.
Now, when I switched to the premium, immediately you could feel that the steering felt nicer to use. And it's because that motor is not there at the front.
Correct.
So it's lighter. So it doesn't get dulled out because of the weight.
Understood.
And because I think a combination of that weight, a combination of the wheels, and the difference in the weight distribution, the way it rode over everything was also cleaner. So it felt like a crisp car, right?
Got it.
So it immediately became a car that I enjoyed driving more, even though I drove it less. I drove both the cars combined for about 200 kilometers.
Got it.
And trust me, that was a lot because there was starting from inside Jaipur and getting out and back in and then back out. It was quite interesting.
Yeah, Jaipur traffic is quite famous.
Very interesting. So, so many heart and mouth moments, I can't tell you. Anyways, so that's the crux of it. Now, the Sealion by itself, if you compare it to the EV6, it's not as dramatic looking, right? Performance, let's put that aside. Let's think about the show aspect of it, right? The EV6 is a far bigger statement. The Ioniq 5 is a classy statement. The Sealion is almost understated.
Okay.
It's, to me, I think of it as a Porsche-inspired design. It's subtle. It's not something that's shouting. It's very understated.
Got
It's very understated. And in that sense, it might not be the statement that you'd
like to make.
You'd like to make. So in terms of design, will it work for everybody? I don't think so.
So what he's saying is there's a small chance that you're an automotive enthusiast, you see one of these BYDs go by and say Sealion, and everybody's looking for the animal because they can't figure out which car you were pointing to in the first place.
I don't know how that connects to this, but sure, yeah.
No. When a seal goes through traffic and somebody says seal, you have no confusion that you're looking for a car to look at, right?
Yeah.
And it's obvious that that's the car you're pointing
When somebody
at,
says Kia EV6, yeah, okay, they're going to get it.
right? When they say Sealion, everybody's looking for like a mane and like a brown coated big cat, right?
So, yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to make that joke again. Twice, enough.
So, as a statement, is it the best statement you can make for the money for about this? Because I think the Ioniq 5 is a stunner. I love how it looks. I mean,
yeah, agreed.
Classy. So, that aside, this Porsche-like experience isn't just on the outside. When you get inside, if you look at this cabin, the sense of quality is so high. And this is the other thing where they have evolved from the seal. And so it doesn't feel like the seal that's just become another body style.
Right.
It's a different mood. You can see that that the design has calmed down.
Non-sporty, more family and comfort.
No, they just had that you know what had those vents which were motorized and they had the weird shape.
Yeah, I remember asking you saying, why can't I just reach out and adjust my vents?
So the design for the vents has changed. It's a very traditional, it's a very simple looking dash. They had this round kind of console where the gear lever is around that. That is gone. Everything now flows in a more normal manner. And in that sense, it is a step in the right direction.
Got it.
It gives the car a sense of classiness. There are still a few things which are, let's say, different. And you can see it on the door pad. But it's done nicely. You know, the door pad itself has layers to it. So there's this one band that's going like this, and then there's a metal sheet from the inside, and it's layered. It's literally layered. You can see gaps through it. Okay, cool. But it's done nicely. So, okay, marks for that. So they've sobered the whole cabin down as well, while upping the sense of premiumness. So if you ask me, after this, when I sat in the seal, and I did sit in the seal in Jaipur, I thought that the seal, because of this design being more mature, aged faster because of it.
Sure.
When I went from this into that, there's a lot that's common, like the seats, the seat designs and all of that is the same. So that still looks good here, it looked good there. But the fundamentals of the cabin are evolved and better over here.
Understood.
And it's like I'm highlighting this, but it's literally like soft touch materials everywhere. Everywhere. Like you open the glove box, the armrest, everything under that felt lined and all of that. So, good. You genuinely would look at this and think, and we keep saying this, what are premium brands going to do?
Yeah.
As EVs grow and new car makers like this get the finer details right.
Correct.
We started with the suspension, and that's the weak link of this package in the sense that that's what's dropping this entire experience down from that high plane, which would have been like, yeah. When I actually saw this car, when I first got into it, I was like, yeah, why will somebody spend crores for some brand now? when you're getting this experience.
Correct. And remember that suspension is felt, not shown. And what he's talking about is what's shown is wow, kick-ass.
Yeah.
Right? Also remember, it's very important, even for the guys who are saying this is a Chinese car, you shouldn't consider it. Even for those you guys, you should understand the context of this. China is the largest car market. They are now over half electric, which means today, car sales, more than 50% of Chinese cars are electric. So if you start to think about where is the cutting edge of electric vehicles being sold as private cars today on earth, it's not the United States, it's not Europe which are making the noise. It's China that is the leader. In that, BYD is one of the absolute largest companies, both on the supplier side and on the production side. BYD cars have to be watched extra cautiously, even if you don't want to buy one, because they are going to tell you where the game has reached. And what he's saying is, these cars aren't perfect, but when you look at the car first glance, they're already doing in a number of ways things in wildly different ways from the traditional automakers, and that is going to cause huge challenges for brands up and down the order. Remember, nobody has said that BYD will bring the Dolphin to India without a sense of apprehension about what it's going to do to the segment it enters in. And that's before you discuss the price, it's because of things like this. Right? He's already saying it's a Porsche-like experience, and he doesn't think that there is a conflict of interest in saying, here's a luxury German brand owned by the Volkswagen Group, etc., etc., etc. And here's a BYD SUV made out of a car, blah, blah. And we're still talking about them in the same breath. So you may not be interested in Chinese cars, and that's fine. They are leading in some of these areas, which we need to catch up to as a country that has its own manufacturing, and we need to be aware of where it's at as consumers who will tomorrow spend money on these.
So this sense of quality is all the more impressive when you again factor in the price. And keep in mind that these cars, the Seal and the Sealion, are being imported into India as CBUs. These are CBUs. And the reason they're as CBUs is because, I mean, of course, the duty is lower because this is under the 2,500 units.
Units, right.
Right? And they are splitting it between these two cars. But even then, these are cars that are being imported into the country. And this is the price that they can pull off.
Yeah.
So it's a sobering thought for every car maker in the world, not just for India. And for India, we definitely, we have two players in cars who are trying to make a mark. In China, there are hundreds, there were thousands, and now they would have come down to hundreds. So to compete with them, we have to think in a completely different scale.
Yeah.
So the quality is just impressive. They've done lots of nice things in the cabin, and one of the things that I'd like to highlight is the dashboard design itself.
Okay.
You know how we've been struggling with screens and multiple screens and how they'll work together? They did a really nice thing on this. So what they've done is the dashboard effectively doesn't jut out, it's actually dished in. And in that dished in layer is where your driver's instrument cluster screen is.
Got it.
And that band just extends across the cabin. And on top of that sits your central, the infotainment screen.
Infotainment screen.
So it doesn't jar. It just flows nicely. And that's also massive 15-inch screen, right? And all the controls are in there. All the controls. So all our, if you've seen our BYD E-Max 7 video, where we've spoken about all the niggles related to BYD with the software or with the controls and all the various settings.
And the translations in some cases.
All of that applies here as well.
Got it.
So if you need to get to the ventilated seats, turning them on, it's 3 clicks on the screen, not even through some buttons or something. You have that high and maximum or whatever, something like that for regen. It's the same.
Larger, I think
it was larger. Yeah, correct. No, it's not larger. Yeah, it is high. It is high and whatever, something else. So they have that. And those kind of, what are these settings for kind of feeling is there in this as well. But the overall sense of richness of the cabin, just looking at it, is 100% impressive.
Got it.
You get in the back seat, and this is the big advantage of the Sealion over the Seal, and that is that this is a usable back seat. I'll put up pictures because I sat in the Seal and the Sealion, and you can see that in the Seal I'm like this, and whereas in the Sealion it's more like this.
Got it.
So it's a far more, for a 6-footer, you'll still feel like, yeah, under thigh could be better. But for me, it was all right. And there's plenty of knee room so you could stretch out. Lavish backseat in some ways, like the way you sit, the seats, all of that is good. The sense of quality around you. But it still feels like a snug backseat.
Okay.
Because the front seats, they're those one-piece sporty seats. So they sit tall in front of you. And you are sitting lower than the front seats.
Got it.
They're kind of like up
Understood.
in the air in front of you. And like I said, it's a coupe shape. It's not an SUV boxy shape at the rear.
Right.
It
So the
tapers
roof
down.
line tapers.
So the windows also get smaller. The window line is higher. So because of that, it starts feeling a bit snug and sporty. I would even call it sporty. But if you're somebody who's claustrophobic, despite this being a more comfortable seat, it might not be for you.
Is there some tinting window issue thing on this?
Yeah. So it doesn't get sunshades. But it has, and I have pictures for that. I really liked it. They have the rear windows are tinted darker. They're dark compared to the front windows.
Standard.
Yeah, standard.
Understood.
So those kind of things. Seats, like I said, all the conveniences are there, seat back pockets, armrest and all of that. And not heavy on gizmos in the rear, but functionally a good back seat.
So in the market, it originates in this would be a car that you drive yourself. Whereas when you buy a car this price in India, chances are you'll be in the backseat and somebody will drive you. So it causes a little bit of a cross connection.
I think in India, I'm sure if you would have also seen, like, somebody is going around in a Lamborghini with a driver.
I've seen Maruti 800s with a driver and Lamborghinis
That
with
is
drivers.
genius. I think that is genius.
I've seen both.
I think if I had an Alto, that's what I do. Get a driver, fold the front seat down and stretch out.
Yeah.
So yeah. So 100%. I think somebody getting one of these, as much as it'll be to say that, hey, I got an EV and it's fun and it's quick, you'll also be spending time in the back seat. And this back seat is a place that you could spend time in comfortably.
Got it.
So that's the basics of the car. Impressive in terms of the quality on the inside. Impressive in terms of value. Impressive in terms of performance. Practicality-wise, the boot is 500 something liters. It is large. It has a small underfloor storage as well. It's like a small tub there. You can put
In the boot.
Yeah, in the boot. So in the boot, there is another tub underneath the floor. The floor itself can go down by an inch or an inch and a half. You can adjust it at 2 levels. And then under that is a tub in which you can pack in more stuff. And under that tub is where the tire repair kit is. And that's the point I was coming to.
No spare.
Yeah.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Right? So because this is an SUV, because of the additional ground clearance, and that's the advantage over the Seal, that now, is this like a whole bunch of ground clearance, like plenty? No. But it's enough to not worry you when you travel with it. Right? It's 160 something mm for the all-wheel drive and 157 mm for the rear-wheel drive version. So did I worry about it over speed breakers, through the bad bits?
Not too much.
It went through. I was a bit careful at first. I took it slightly off the road to get some pics and all. So at that time it was undulating and all, but it was soft. So I wasn't really worried, but it didn't touch anywhere. Right? So usable.
Got it.
But the lack of a spare wheel is always something that I'll be like, then,
I wish.
Yeah. So aside from range anxiety, there's tire anxiety also. Right? And talking about range anxiety, BYD claims 540 something kilometers for the performance and 560, closer to 570 for the rear wheel drive.
Okay.
I started off with the performance. And by the time I'd consumed 20%, I had covered about 100 kilometers.
Wow, okay.
So 500 kilometer range is looking, and this is again through Jaipur city, out highway. I went a fair way out towards Kotputli and then turned back.
Got it.
And yeah, so it was, looking at a 500 kilometer range from that, even with the performance variant, looks doable.
So these numbers you're giving is IDC, WLTP?
So this is
Or real world
the
claim
numbers
by...
that they have shared are NEDC.
Oh, NEDC.
These are not the India numbers. The India numbers are if it was India numbers, then it would be 700, something like
Got
that.
it. Okay.
So, and whatever we've seen in the past, like even when we spoke about the Seal, and more recently with the E7 Max, whatever range that BYD vehicles indicate typically are the numbers that you'll get.
Yeah.
The exception in these kind of cars is with this level of performance when you start using that
Yeah, of
performance,
course. That
you cannot
takes the
expect,
battery out.
yeah, you cannot expect that.
fair enough.
Which is why I said the first 100 kilometers. Because after that, the last 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers that I drove with it, that number went because I told you I did the hard acceleration right at the end. Like I left it for the last.
Correct.
And then the range just changed.
Yeah, and this is true for all electrics, including scooters and motorcycles also. So if you ride calmly, gently as a normal human being would, you get very close to many of the brand's predicted numbers, especially Ather, for example, right? But when I say I'm done with testing and I start riding like I normally would, which is I will go a lot quicker and I will use a lot more acceleration in many more situations than when I'm testing, then suddenly the battery ranges drop very, very dramatically. So I can get 80 kilometers of range, which is what they claim, and it works. I can also drop that to 45 if I feel like it. So on a performance car like this, if you're willing to use all the Newton meters you've got, it is going to take the battery out of the equation.
Yeah. And this is the same for ICE, it's same for EVs. When you demand way more performance.
And if you demand way more performance routinely from a 500 Newton meter car, you're also going to get challans and other things.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? We were already worried about it on the BE6. Now imagine this.
So, which is why I will not ask you to buy this car.
Oh,
because it's, and in the, not because they have actually done something very nice. When you go for wide open throttle, like when you smash the accelerator, you know, it doesn't spike immediately. And this is the performance version that I'm talking about. I told you it's violent in the way it accelerates. But what it does, the sense that has remained with me is that when you first smash it, it doesn't immediately dump torque.
okay.
It waits half a second. It's almost like, are you sure you want to do this? Did you do it by mistake, right? You can roll back, right? But if your foot's still in it, it's out of there. Now the same thing with the premium was even better.
Okay.
The premium 320 horsepower is no joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it felt so easy to drive.
Got it.
So easy to drive. And that's the car that I would recommend to most people because it is quick, but it's also so forgiving and easy. In that, I feel they've been even more not careful, but even more thoughtful about how they've calibrated the power delivery. So in that, when you smash it, again, the power
ramps
builds
up slowly enough for you to comprehend it.
So in this, actually, it does steps.
Got it.
When you get to the end of it, when it really comes on, like you're like, man, this is quick.
Yeah.
But it doesn't straight go there.
Got it.
You can make it quicker by going from normal to sport and all. And even in the performance, when I first did it in normal, I was like, man, this is quick. And then you do it in performance, and you're like, man, this is even quicker. And the difference is not the initial acceleration, which is stronger, but it's how it just keeps pulling after that. You know, as you keep your foot down, it still keeps building.
Yeah.
So in that regard, the reason why we will always throw caution is that with these prices, this level of performance on paper is fantastic. In the real world, it's mind-boggling. And you know, I was telling Shumi, and I hate even talking about it, but I was driving up that Nargar road, and it's a narrow road.
Yeah.
It's basically just 2 lanes.
It feels narrow on a motorcycle, kind of narrow.
Yeah, and imagine on this. And I was driving up, and it was a left, and this car came from the other side, on the wrong side.
And there are lots of blind turns on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I don't have to do a thing.
Yeah.
This car with its weight and its low inertia will just, I mean, it'll destroy vehicles, right? So this performance along with that weight, no, you have to be cognizant of this. This is not the same kind of horsepower. This is not the same kind of potential for damage, because when you have that much weight sitting low down and accelerating as ferociously as these cars can, you have to be extra careful.
Yeah, because the vehicle on the other side, like a regular IC vehicle, it doesn't have this weight distribution or this weight. So it'll basically get flicked out of the way by this car. And For you, maybe this is a good thing, but for them, it's much more devastating than usual, is the point that he's making.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so it almost like, and with, I'll admit, like, when we first started driving premium cars, every time you'd get into like a high-end car, which you can't freaking afford, but when you get into it, you'd be like giving people looks and all, yeah, buy Baju Hut, like that kind. And these kind of cars with this kind of performance and this kind of accessibility will turn your head. Let's accept that. And once you accept that, then you can fix it.
Yeah.
Right? So keep that in mind. If you choose to get it, please be extra careful. Please be responsible with this. If you aren't sure about that, it's not just a question of pleasure, it's a question of lives, yours and other people's. Choose the lower spec. It's a great spec. It's a car with all the equipment and lots of performance there as well.
Right.
So you could easily enjoy yourself and enjoy yourself more in terms of the driving experience.
Crash test ratings?
And this will be 5-star, whatever. It gets like 7, 9 airbags, something like that, any which ways. It has ADAS tech. And this one over the seal also gets this driver monitoring system, which is a camera on the A-pillar. And it's going on watching you all the time. Thankfully, no selfie camera in this one. It's just watching you, and this...
Mahindra's cars are better. They can take a selfie also.
Yeah. And the auntie wakes up every now and then and she goes, keep your eyes on the road.
You weren't?
Yeah, so like even if you look at the touchscreen, like let's say I'm looking at maps or something like that, it'll be like, it'll say that you're not paying attention to the road. And the best one was when you yawn. She again says, tiredness detected or something like that. And it's practically instantly, you'll do...
And immediately.
Immediately. So I had a blast. I was like, at some point that lady will wake up and arey bus kar. So I went on doing that, but obviously
No.
Sorry. So yeah,
but auntie gets upset if you're looking at the touchscreen.
Anything, because
knowing that all the controls of the car practically are in that touchscreen.
What a great point, man. What
Very interesting.
a great point. Yes. Yes.
So the guys who built the driver monitoring system knew that the touchscreen is going to cause a problem in terms of people looking out of the car while they're driving. But the UI UX team went ahead with their 15-inch screen anyway and ignored the... Very interesting.
Yeah. So this is our world. Not confusing at all.
But at least you can't make Zoom calls and watch YouTube, right?
I don't think so.
Because on the third screen on the Mahindra you can.
Yeah. This one doesn't have a third screen, just 2 screens.
It has only 2 screens.
Only 2 screens, only 2 screens.
Now I have to ask this question. So would you buy a BE6 or would you buy one of these?
We will leave that for the end of the conversation.
Okay, we'll come back to this.
Yes, that is one of the overarching themes.
So 6 or 7 is the question.
So, and talking about screens, the rear windscreen is small. Because of the sloping roofline, it's like really narrow.
Also dark?
Not that dark. It's okay. But it's really small.
Okay.
So, which reminds me that...
But that's how a Sealion is shaped also.
Yeah, tapers down. Which is why I realized that they are so hyperactive in terms of the 360-degree camera.
Got it.
So every time you indicate, the 360-degree camera will kick in. And I had my phone connected to the infotainment system. So I had Apple CarPlay in 15.6 inches working. And
that means your phone icon's this big.
So, but then suddenly in the middle of that, the
screen would come up and you'd see the car.
That will go and take up a certain portion of the screen.
Got it.
So again, right, you see this kind of finesse in terms of these things has not happened. Like where you could just easily split the screen up and say that, okay, that part is for your phone mirroring and this is for your native UI.
Got it.
Native system. No.
It doesn't. Yeah.
It just comes with overlays on top of that. And there are those little bit of the chimes and all of that, which are strange.
Which you can't turn off, or you didn't turn off.
You can, like this driver attention warning thingy, you can switch that off as well. But I didn't spend so much time fiddling around with these things right now.
Understood.
Has ADAS as well.
Did you try it? No.
Jaipur.
Got it.
Better as soon
on
as
the seal also you didn't try the ADAS, so we don't have a sense of what the BYD's ability to calibrate ADAS for Indian conditions is yet. Is something that we will do when the car comes for view.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
What I can talk about, and I'm happy to, is that the driving experience, why did it feel distant? I told you about the steering. The steering angle was there, that it just felt numb on the performance variant. And the other thing was the brakes, which is again a thing that I'm just struggling with all the EVs that they feel so numb.
This is also another e-brake type thing?
Yeah. And see, this
Okay.
is again, so this is one of the themes that we're going to talk about at the end, which is this whole demand for born EVs and why a converted EV is a bad thing.
Okay.
Right? We'll talk about that at the end. You see this as a born EV. Is it providing you superior experience in terms of the braking feel? No, it's not. We didn't see that with the BE6 either. Right? Okay. So the braking side of it, then imagine the regen side of it. It doesn't have single pedal driving.
Oh, the Seal also did?
No, it didn't.
Okay.
So, like we said, it just has those two modes, high and whatever, the other one.
Larger.
And even in whichever is the higher mode, it's very, very soft.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like regen. It just feels like some amount of coasting braking is happening. That's it. Nothing more than that. It doesn't actually help you slow down the car. It does not bring the car to a stop also. So it's a very strangely counterintuitive to an EV, right? You'd be thinking, I'll be maximizing the efficiency out of this. But that's not the case here. So there are these strange things that happen with the BYDs as well, because you'd think you are the #1 EV maker.
Correct.
Right? People are buying batteries out of you. You've got your tech sorted. You'd expect all of these things as the default.
Right.
But
see, my perspective on regen increasingly is I'm not convinced about the net value of regen as a process itself. We know that the government says if you build an EV, it must have regen. I've never heard of a person from the manufacturer who said our regen gives you the ability to get 25% of your range back. Numbers are 5%, 6%, 7%. Right? I'm wondering, is the amount of work that we are putting into this, which you are paying for, is it worth the 7%? Or is it a part of the process of building out the EV idea, saying, oh, we are so efficient, you can get 7% of your range back. On a 500 kilometer range car, 7% may be a significant number, but it is preceded by the idea that I have 500 kilometers of range. I don't need that number. I will be in a charging station long before that, and I would have calculated for it because I have so much range to play with. I'm not convinced that you need so much regen.
Actually, for me, now I look forward to good regen systems. Like the single...
No, I'm saying if you enjoy driving, it is one part of it. And if it is useful to you in single pedal driving, which I have experienced on, for example, a Tesla, where I understood it very quickly and I used it quite well, I understand it. When it works, I understand it. I'm saying when a scooter manufacturer says we've done this new thing with the regen, and then the benefit is some 5%, 6%, 7%. And then to learn this, I have to spend hours thinking about, oh, I have to do this. I don't know that it's worth it.
So you're saying it's almost like a tokenized system?
It's almost like, listen, these are the 5 parts of my ecosystem that I must talk about. And even if the benefit is minimal, which the consumer will eventually end up paying for, hey, I don't have a choice. I have to advertise it anyway.
Right. Correct. Some of them really feel token.
Tell me what you think about this. To me, regen needs to get to, I don't know, 15%, 17, 18% of your daily driving for it to be something I would invest in terms of money first, and then some amount of effort to learn how to use it. But am I willing to do this for something that returns 5%, 7% of range? I'm not convinced. Tell me what you think in the comments.
Okay.
So you were saying that regen on this is whatever.
And for me, the regen aspect of it from the single pedal drive mode, right? Like when we spoke about the Creta, it became my default. I didn't even want to use the brake, and I could drive the car on just the accelerator. And that to me feels like a new gen driving experience. It feels so smooth and it feels so intuitive that I enjoy that. And when you come to this, which is, let's say, peak EV in the sense of evolution of technology,
correct,
and then you come here and you say that, no, it's not. It doesn't have it at all, the single pedal drive mode. And in that sense, this car is a bit strange when compared to the EV6 or the Ioniq 5, because its peak charging capacity is 150 kilowatts, where they are at 350 or something like that, the ability. Forget whether you have the chargers or not. But that was the case with the Seal also.
Did BYD ever answer the question why they didn't bother with a single pedal driving mode and why charging is capped at 150?
So again, the gap between questions being asked here and the responses.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right? So like we have asked, so now that we are onto this, let's talk about some of the geeky, greasy things. So the reason why this is a Seal but not a Seal, because in terms of aesthetics, you can see that, yeah, it is related to the Seal. You can see in terms of its electrical hardware that it is related to the Seal. But surprisingly, it's not just longer and taller is even wider. Its track width is actually more by 15, 20 mm. I think front is 15, rear is 20. The wheelbase is longer by another 10 mm. So its core architecture is actually not just the seal and raised up.
Correct.
It's actually redesigned. So obviously it's not just a raised seal.
No.
Then the electric architecture also, they say, is evolved from the seal. So in terms of the battery pack, yes, it's the same battery pack, but it's different.
Okay.
The motor is the same in terms of output, but it's different. And like they shared one number this time around, which was 23,000 RPM. Like the motor can now spin up to that.
Got it.
Which was not the case with the seal.
Right, which is some 18, 19,000 or something like that.
Yeah, but what that number is, we haven't got it.
Got it. Yeah. Did you get the answers to the seal questions yet?
I think we had got some of them. So like,
what was the time delay on that? Just so you know.
No. So some of the answers you'll get immediately. So like when I was at the drive, I asked some questions, and I think by the time I got back to Pune, I had got responses to ground clearance, because ground clearance hadn't been shared, what the number was. I asked, why is the weight so much more compared to the seal? So I got answers to some of that and details like that, but not everything.
Got it.
Some of the things just get lost in translation, I've come to understand. So, yeah. So the motor is 23,000 RPM. And every time you, the way you should understand this is when a motor spins more, means you can calibrate it better. It can be smoother. You can get more finesse in the way it drives.
Basically, it does many more things between 0 and maxed out. So you can choose what the car does where with more granularity, which can lead to a better experience overall.
And you can, if you want and can get the opportunity, drive the pre-facelift Nexon EV and then the post-facelift Nexon EV.
Where again the motor revved out higher. Yeah.
And you'll see how the smoothness varies between the two. So that kind of optimizations and changes have happened to make this more current gen. And yes, I think it feels like a sophisticated machine to drive. The one thing that this reminds me is, while the powertrain is smooth and quiet, this is supposed to be a premium experience in terms of everything. And while the cabin looks and feels great, the sound insulation wasn't as good as I expected either. And they said that you've got double glazed windows up front, but I felt I could hear pass-by sounds a lot more than I would have expected. So there are those kind of details, which don't feel quite right for the entire experience that the car otherwise suggests to you.
Got it.
So BYD, in that sense, to me, you can see that they've got the fundamentals in a great place. But strangely enough, as one of the peak EVs, they still miss out on things. There's a car that's offering you outstanding value and in many ways offering you an outstanding experience as a luxury product or a performance product. It still ends up missing out on that finesse of the connection, the final bits, right? Like for the steering or the brakes or the sound insulation, which should be, will help them nail this experience.
Right.
Right?
So the last 10% is still left.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that's always the hardest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, again, where we started, for this price, this performance, this level of ability, amazing. Amazing. And one thing that I want to, and this is just a thought, I was thinking, how could the 530 horsepower car have a range that's only 20 kilometers less than the 320 horsepower car? And then I realized it was during that wide open throttle time. What I feel, what the system does is, for most of the time, you're working with rear-wheel drive. And this is one of the questions I asked BYD. How do you use the all-wheel drive setup? Right. What is the state by default as torque split and stuff like that, which we didn't get an answer to. So what I feel the system does is, most of the time, it is only rear-wheel drive. It's when you go hard.
Got it.
Only then does the front motor engage. And that is why when I did that hard acceleration, there was this one point where you felt a kick.
Got it.
Which is I think that was the front motor also stepping in, going up.
Oh, got it.
And of course, then does it do torque vectoring and all of that? I don't know as of now. And if we ever get a BYD into the studio and we get more time with it, then we'll be able to get into these details. As of now, this is a first taste, first hit.
Got it.
And that's where we're at. So you want to do the summary first and then we do the other?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah? Okay.
So here's the quick summary of the BYD Seal 7. 7, right? Yeah, 7. Kartikeya is really impressed with the car. And what he's saying is, BYD is nailing a large part of the premium luxury experience really, really well with this car. The Seal and the Sealion are related in some ways. A large part of how the motor works, the battery packs are very similar, but they're not identical in the sense this is a larger car, it's wider, track is changed, wheelbase is longer, etc., etc. And of course, the body style is more like sporty coupe, whereas the Seal obviously is like a sports car. One. Two, this is a four-seater. Very nice seats up front, very, very similar to the Seal, if not exactly identical to the Seal. The back seat, very comfortable. The windows come tinted from the factory, and it's a slightly cozy cabin because the roofline dips a little bit, dark windows, etc. Is a good seat. But if you're claustrophobic, you may not enjoy it so much. If you're really tall, under thigh support might be a challenge, but fundamentally a good back row with all the usual creature comforts in its right place and all of that kind of thing. In front of the driver is a very nice single, what looks like a panel. There's a dished part in which the driver's information is there and the other screen on the other side. No third screen, no YouTube, no Zoom that we can figure out, but this middle screen is a 15-inch screen. Annoyingly, all the controls of the car are in that screen, and it's not the greatest menu system ever. So you will be tapping it a lot to get to some really basic functions. When you do, there is a driver monitoring system which will wake up and tell you that you're not watching the road. Slight conflict of interest between two BYD software systems, if you think about it, but for what it's worth, you are being watched. It sounds like the opening of person of interest, but it's not. You are being watched, and if you yawn, you will be warned that, hey, are you tired? And if you look away from the road, auntie will wake up and remind you to keep looking, etc. But you can turn the system off. What he really enjoyed about this car is that when you sit in this cabin, that sense of being luxurious, spacious, etc. in its place, soft touch materials everywhere, and it feels right in that way. But he's saying it's luxurious in an understated Porsche sort of way rather than a flaunty, shouty sort of way, which is interesting. To drive, it's a reasonably fun car. Initially, you will be very impressed with the acceleration of the top model, which is called Performance, which has a ton of performance. It's a very fast car. But what Karthik said is it's a four-wheel drive in the sense of there's a front motor and a rear motor. When you drive it, you will also feel slightly disconnected from the experience, although it's a very, very impressive performance experience. And he increasingly enjoyed the smaller version of the car, smaller in the sense performance is less. It's called the Premium. The Premium is a rear-wheel drive electric, and that car feels more connected, more fun. It has significantly less performance, but it is not a slow car by any stretch of the imagination. It also has the slightly smaller wheels, which Karthik thinks as a package, it comes together as a car, as a more natural, enjoyable, friendly car than the top car. If you must have the top car, massive performance, no two ways about it. But if you want the better car as something you'd enjoy to drive and it's not slow at all, the Premium, which is the lower version, is actually the better one. Apart from this, reasonable amount of boot space. In the boot space, there is storage under the floor, which should be your clue to realize that there is no spare wheel that comes with the car. That's one of the issues you're going to face with the car. The other thing you should know is BYD is importing these cars as CBUs. The limit, I think, for the annual is about 2,500 units, which they split between the Seal and this car, which means if this car becomes super popular, there will be a limitation on how many of these you can actually purchase. But for what it's worth, the Seal was quite popular, and because the Sealion is a more useful car in every day because it has slightly more ground clearance, it has more space, it drives more like a family car than the sports car that the Seal is, chances are this will become the more popular model of the two, and therefore the Seal is sold out. So chances are the Sealion 7 will also have bookings and waiting periods, and chances are it will be sold out. Fundamentally, what the Sealion 7 sets as a benchmark is where it is at when it comes to EVs in some ways, and where it's at in terms of how the luxury experience is created by the Chinese brands today in some ways. And he's saying they're 90% of the way. They have small misses here and there, like the noise insulation in the cabin could have been a little bit better, and small issues like this still persist. The software is another issue. There's CarPlay in the car, but when it wants to show you the 360 camera, it's not resolved as to how that image will appear on that screen and interact with the CarPlay screen. And there are small issues like this, but fundamentally very impressive car, very impressive to drive. And yes, we will have to deal with the issue that this is a Chinese car and whether you want to buy it or not, and we've made our points about this in the beginning. You can go back and see the beginning if you like. We have two things left to discuss, so I'm ending the quick summary here. One is how is it versus the BE6, and the other thing you wanted to discuss was
Born electric
versus modified platforms that take electrics. Last thing I want to say, the worst aspect of this car are two. One is suspension, which is not great. It's not bad, but it doesn't have the same kind of luxurious, considerate feeling that the rest of the car has. The other is the e-brake, which doesn't feel good to drive. And this car simply does not bother to have a single pedal driving mode at all. There is some regen, it does something, but will you be able to use only the accelerator pedal as you might do, for example, on a Creta Electric, which is a very, very good car on this aspect? No, you can't.
And while you were talking quickly, some of the things I'll run through that I missed. Frunk, massive, 60 liters. So like I would put my overnighter in there easily. It's got cup holders which have height adjustment. Remember I complained in the Syros that they were too deep. You press a button and the cup holders rise so you can adjust it. Anyways, more importantly, the sound system. They have this system called Dyna Audio. Good, enjoyable. So that was a good thing. And when you were talking about this just now, it's the brakes, the steering, which didn't connect, and that's the performance, which is why the premium variant is the variant we'd recommend overall.
Premium performance, okay? The names are confusing. Premium performance.
So the premium feels cleaner, crisper, and more involving to drive. And that's the big reason why I would pick it, despite it being slower. And in that regard, that's the last thing. The slow car is 6.7 seconds to 100. And the faster car is 4.5. Okay. So it's not slow. And that brings us to the BE6. 6.7 seconds. The BE6 is 6.8 seconds. Ooh. Right? For a smaller car with 300 horsepower. And this is, that's 280 something. 280 something. This is 323, something like that. So, and a bigger car, the only point I want to make here is that car is 27 lakhs. This car is 48 lakhs. What Mahindra has managed, once again, to highlight is incredible, considering that those cells are being imported by them from BYD.
Correct.
Right? So again, to underline that what that car is actually delivering is phenomenal. The question of finesse still remains, and this is the level that if Mahindra hits at that price point, then you have a car that's complete.
And globally complete.
Yeah. Like then you cannot argue with that, right?
Right.
So, and we've seen, like we said, the BYD has certain gaps in terms of the finesse, like the UI, UX, but it's not at a point where it makes you think that it's, hey, I'm being a tester here.
Yeah, it's not a deal breaker or a beta test.
It's just that it's not nicely executed. Yeah. That's about it. Right? So that's the BE6 conversation.
So 6 is greater than 7 by a factor of 20 lakhs.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And if you were to bring the XEV instead, which is like a more family-oriented electric from Mahindra?
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's, that's 30 lakhs.
Right.
30.5 X showroom. So
6 and 9 are both greater than 7 for now.
I mean, in terms of the pure play of performance, space, the XEV9e strikes a great, makes a phenomenal case for itself in relation to this. Now, what's the difference? It's the difference in finesse.
Right.
It's the difference in being able to say, I know that's sorted, full stop. That's the trust that you have in BYD right now, saying that these guys, they're sorted.
Correct.
Right? And not just on one front, like we said with the Cayman. Now we're looking at it and saying, wow, this is so good.
Yeah.
Full stop. So yeah, so that's with the Mahindras, let's say. And
it might be easier for you to buy the BYD compared to Mahindra's, given the fact that they just announced some 40,000 bookings or some nonsense number like this.
Yeah, and shucks, okay. That's another piece altogether, because the lower variants are going to be August.
I also want manufacturers who advertise the number of bookings as a thing to be able to tell us what is the actual number of people who actually convert their bookings. Because if you're going to say, hey, we will refund your booking, so therefore it's safe for you to make a booking, honestly, that number has no value. It's just unnecessary marketing. And if you're watching this and you're like, wow, they have 37,000 bookings, I don't know if they have 36,000 cancellations or not. I don't think Mahindra does. I'm just saying.
So that's the Mahindra conversation. And the other conversation was when we did the Creta Electric. There were a whole bunch of comments saying that, oh my God, this uses an NMC battery. Oh my God, this is not a Born EV. And it's a converted platform. So it's, who the hell will pay this kind of money for that?
Sorry, you gave such a great idea to Triumph.
What?
If they were to make an electric motorcycle, it had to be formatted as a retro, like the Flying Flea C6 is. And if you were to do that, the name is Born EV.
Born EV. Yeah. Oh, hey, dude, damn good, man. Yeah.
Sorry. You're talking about Born EVs versus converted.
So, again, and this is the idea that Shumi is already referred to. If you buy into the hype, you sell yourself short.
Yeah.
Judge a product on the basis of what it does. The Creta EV is shockingly a modified platform, but one of the best back seats that we've experienced till now in terms of under thigh support. It's better than the 6E, clearly. It's, from whatever I can make out, it's better than the backseat experience is better than the Vitara electric that's going to come, e-Vitara that's going to come. Whatever images and videos, little bit that I've seen, and I was taken aback by that. And we have not seen many born EVs that have wowed us outright, which takes us back to the golden ice age backseat experience. Very few. I mean, right now while we talk, I'm trying to think of which one wowed me. And I'm going to say wow hasn't happened yet.
No, and in fact, not directly related to this, but I have been riding a Rizda, the Ather electric, back to back with the Jupiter 110, back to back with an iQube S. So there's 3 scooters in the mix, and there's 1 IC in there and 2 EVs. And when you're riding them by themselves for a view story, for example, you don't really notice any ergonomic issue with any of the 3. They're all comfortable, right? When you ride them back to back, you suddenly realize that your knees go up on the electrics because the battery packs are high. And I think I was experiencing a Taiwanese electric scooter that had been brought to India for some R&D purpose or something, and I was riding that, and that had like that thick floorboard because they'd double stacked the battery, if I remember correctly. And that double stack battery was so high that I felt like my knees were next to my ears versus how they would normally be on a scooter. So it doesn't occur to you when you're doing it by itself, but when you're doing this back to back, suddenly the difference, which is technically what, 2 inches, 1 inch, whatever it is, it can make a big difference.
Right. And the other argument was that the Creta uses NMC, right? And look at Mahindra, they're offering lithium ion with the... Do you remember another Mahindra that came as an EV not too long ago? What battery pack it used? What chemistry? Yeah. So, and that wasn't the only one. Mercedes has used it. Tesla's used it. Agreed, there are newer chemistries and there are new advantages that come out of that, but that doesn't outright mean something is obsolete and done and dangerous, right? Because keep in mind, this battery pack is cooled. This battery pack for the top spec variant is heated, so which means it can manage itself in different kinds of environments. So the only thought is, remember that when you feel so strongly about something, just cross-check with the experience. And yes, maybe you don't want to buy a vehicle today because you're unsure about the chemistry. Then wait it out.
Yeah. With the electrics, our advice has been consistently the same. This is a new thing. Everybody, including 100 governments, might be saying this is the next big thing. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. I think it will be. But you're at the beginning of that curve of technology and things will evolve really quickly. Just to give you an example, between the Seal and the Sealion, the motor itself has changed.
Yes.
If they're revving it out to 23,000 and saying 23,000 is awesome, you can bet that 50,000 RPM is coming next. That doesn't mean 23,000 is useless. It means 50,000 is better. Tomorrow they will sell you 2 cars with 23,000 RPM motors and 2 cars with 50,000 RPM motors. If this works for you, there is no reason why you should be paying extra for these. And if this doesn't work for you, please get these. This is going to happen to batteries over and over again just because of the amount of sheer concerted effort all over the earth to develop ever better and different kinds of batteries. And remember, I'm saying better and different. The sodium batteries are considered much cheaper to make, they're much safer, etc., etc. They don't have the charge density. So they will go to smaller cars which will be designed for urban runabouts. But the lithium-based batteries, which are considered in so many thousands of ways bad for the environment, etc., etc., they are the more powerful batteries, and longer distance applications and more luxurious products will probably have some version of lithium. But this is all we know right now. There are, I don't know, 1,500 other kinds of ways to store energy that are being worked on right now. And tomorrow something will come and supersede all of these. I always remind you, to me, electrics today is the same as 1910s, 1920s motorcycles. Everybody is going to try everything. They tried mounting engines to the front wheel. That had pros and that had massive cons, so it's not around anymore. They tried doing 1 cylinder, 2 cylinder, 3 cylinder, 4 cylinder, 5 cylinder, 7 cylinder. Short of putting 8 cylinders in somebody's back pocket, they've tried everything. Some of these solutions had such strong pros that they won out. And today, 100 years later or something, we have relatively stable ICs where many things are predictable. EVs will not reach that state for another 4 to 5 years minimum. Lots of stuff is about to change. If this worries you, I'm not saying they're unstable today. I'm saying more stable products will come tomorrow. And if this worries you, you are not ready to buy an electric yet. Simple.
I was at one point doing this course about EV engineering EVs, And in that, the professor made a very interesting point. You can't just pick a chemistry and say, this is it. You have to decide what the purpose of the vehicle is.
Yeah.
And in that, the interesting thing was, if you take and this was again a point that somebody brought up, that an NMC pack's total charge life cycles are lower than that of an LFP, valid. But if your range of that vehicle is going to be 400 kilometers versus what it was 200 kilometers a few years ago, your charge cycles are going to be fewer for the lifespan of that vehicle in itself.
Correct.
Right? So you have to look at the entire application
Yep.
and then look at the full picture rather than just picking bits and pieces out of it. And finally, of course, it's always how it performs. And so judge on that basis rather than snap calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are not even stable enough yet for a manufacturer to wake up and say, I'll give you a lifetime warranty on a battery yet. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The closest you've come is somebody saying, if you buy my car and then you never sell my car, I will take care of the battery for your lifetime.
And good point. The lifetime warranty, as many of you asked and clarified as well, thanks for that, is 15 years. That's the registration of the vehicle.
No. What will I do? I normally keep my cars for 20 years, bro.
So that is the other thing, right? Yeah. Those were the things that I wanted to talk about.
Okay. What's next?
Nothing on my side. You?
BYD? What's next for BYD? After the Sealion 7? Walrus 8?
Dolphin.
Chotu Gadi?
Dolphin. Seagull. Now from the ocean, they'll go to the skies. No, so I think the small cars, there's definitely a roadblock. And I think BYD obviously would want to do more stuff in India, but
okay. And in the traditional car industry, the brands we recognize, job done. I know the XUV 700 electric has been brought up in conversations again and again as something that is due and pending.
Yeah. So I don't have a timeline for that.
The new facelift you said should be pending.
Which is, again, second half of this year. We will definitely have more stuff before that. We will have, I think we are in a bit, Jan was nice and busy and nice cars as well, some of them. So that was good. But I think we will see some more action kick in post-March. After that, things should again pick up. And we will have, of course, the new EVs. And it seems like there are plenty of EVs that we'll have to deal with.
As long as they don't have e-brakes, I think Kartikeya will enjoy himself.
As long as they have feel, it's good. Feel chahiye, feel.
Because every time he comes back, everything is like, oh, and then e-brake, oh, e-brake. But it's actually the same on the motorcycle front too.
Yeah.
Right? As we record this, I am about 4 days away from riding the KTM 390 Adventure. I already know that we are only riding the top version of this bike. The X 390 and the 250 Adventure will happen later, maybe as late as mid-March, maybe even later than that. We know this for sure. We couldn't attend the Tuono launch. I don't know when the Tuono is coming, but I'm assuming that is going to be at least 2-3 weeks from now. These are the two that we know of. Right? I think both of these will be good machines. We'll see. Right? What else is happening? We are not sure. Right? I know Honda's done a series of updates, etc. But I know Honda also has refused to have media fleet bikes at all. So they said, हमारे पास है ही नहीं, हम करते ही नहीं है ये काम. So there are no Honda stories coming. Interpret it however you feel like it. Really, I mean, it is what it is. This is the actual reality. They said we don't have media fleet bikes. We have no plan to have media fleet bikes. So that's the end of that. From Bharat Mobility Expo, Yamaha showed off a bunch of things. When are they coming? We are not sure. The two bikes that we know are coming, dates were decided, cancelled, and now new dates haven't come, is the Hero Extreme 250R and the Xpulse 210. There's one colleague of mine in the office who's asking me about the Xpulse 210 every single day. Every single day.
Okay, that's not me.
No, not him. Another colleague. And I have told him, just assume it is 210 days from now, which is mostly to get him off my back. It has nothing to do with reality. We'll see when it happens.
Yeah, because the last time he went and rode the Destiny, from the time he rode the Destiny till we got the price was
6 months. Almost 5 months, I think. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So it was September. And then we got the scooter here in February. So September, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
definitely 210 is a good number.
It won't take that long. It's just there was an event confirmed, cancelled. Now we don't know when the new date is. It should be soon. Hero is not hanging around. They have a lot of products coming. They've been very, very clear that the premium bikes will come one after the other until the range is filled out.
And I'm almost scared to ask about this. It's like,
But
because Classic 650?
Classic 650, I believe, is in March.
Oh,
I believe it's in March. Should be mid-March or 1 week after that is what I'm expecting. No confirmations yet, but it is going to happen.
oh. And I'm scared about that one. Anyways, yeah.
Why are you scared?
Because I love that classic.
I think I saw the pictures and it looks smashing.
And the rear
And I read the reports
suspension.
from Britain and they're already talking about rear suspension. When people go outside this country and start talking about rear suspension, I'm sorry, but my flags are up. We will see what this turns out to be.
That's what I'm scared of. Okay.
Yeah, I just did 2 stories on the Bear, which will, I think, come to the app very soon. Will come to YouTube later. I love that bike and I am so frustrated with it. I mean, I'm so frustrated with it because I love it so much.
Okay, view.
Yeah, it's coming next. It's coming. It'll come to the app very soon. I'm not sure when it's coming to YouTube yet.
All right, on that note.
Yeah. Okay, so done.
Hey.
So now you've discovered that there are 3 kinds of sea lions. We discussed the 3rd kind today. And it's a subtle car. So if you say sea lion, people may be looking for the animal and not for the car. But for what it's worth, there's a lot of good stuff going on in the car. And hopefully we've highlighted everything that's not going well with this car. If you have any more questions, please do leave us a comment. We do prefer if you ask us questions on the app. There are more places to do it. There's more ways for us to classify it. And there's more ways for us to track your responses so we can answer back if you have a follow-up question, which is simply not possible elsewhere. But if you choose to use any of the platforms you're on, we will try and get you an answer if we can. If there's anything we've not covered in this and you have questions, please do leave us a comment. Otherwise, this has been MotorInc First. Thank you so much for watching.